Sulakshana, the High Exclusive, right here on High TV, your luxury channel. I'm here at the Ladies College, Colombo today to mark and celebrate a momentous occasion as Ladies College turns 125 years. To mark the occasion, of course, they've put together 125 years of history into beautiful 125 pages. And to talk about the book, I have with me the editor of the book, Miss Sulakshana de Mel. Sulakshana, welcome on the show.
Good morning, Dima.
Well, Sulakshana, it's a beautiful book. It's a very interactive book. Let's talk about the inspiration behind putting this book together.
I was invited by Miss Deepika Dasanayake, Principal Ladies College, and her team about a year and a half ago to work on a coffee table book. It's been quite a while since I left school in 1998, and to come back to school with this tremendous project, it was quite an honor. So the inspiration, I would say, comes back from the days I was in school and being nurtured in an environment like this, full of trees and heritage buildings. And I'm a bit of a history buff. So when Ms. Dasanayake said, you know, why don't we do a coffee table book, of course I dived into it.
Now, we did a little bit of a walk through the archive room as well. So let's talk about the contents of this 125 pages and your journey of putting it all together.
It was quite a journey. From the very beginning, I knew that it was quite a Herculean task to put this book together. And already we had two books. One book done in 1950s by Miss Hitchcock, and then we had another history book edited by Professor Ranjini Obesekara to mark the centenary celebration. So already there was a lot of history that had been captured and documented. So the brief that Ms. Dasanayake and her team gave me was very precise. That was also part of the challenge. I was told that I should not exceed 125 pages. And then also when we had the first meeting, we looked at the material that's available already in the market, looked at, you know, books printed by universities, not just schools but universities and others, and we were very clear that it should not be a book that sits on a shelf in a library and collect dust. Yes. So one of the first things that we all kind of agreed upon was that it should be a book that the reader would be inspired, motivated to turn the pages and read. So so that was also a challenge I had, to present the book in a way that it appeals to all ages, whether it's a child still in school, an old girl there, or a non-LCite. So it was looking at all these aspects. Then of course came, so where do you start? Of course I started from school, from the archival room, where I used to kind of come every day and browse all this wonderful material that had been documented over the years. So I mean, and a lot of documents are over 100 years old. So we were also very conscious of, you know, I mean, handling old documents.
Preserving them as well.
Exactly. I also discovered the catalog room and the senior library, which is also storing a wealth of information on school, old photographs, letters, little notes written from a class teacher to the principal 100 years ago. So it's a lot of documentation in school, but of course I also wanted to capture the different narratives. So at one point I had all this information, and I was thinking, what do I do with it? So how I navigate, and what is going to be the narrative arc?
Because it would be quite difficult for you to have so much material and to decide what to highlight and what to keep in the background. Yeah?
Absolutely. So when I looked around and looked at my own life, looked at the lives of my friends, and also had these detailed discussions with Ms. Dasanayake on how the school is right now, adapting to the new challenges in the world. So that gave me a hint on, like, what is it at Ladies College that makes her different to other schools? So that was my key question in my head. And while I was investigating on this key question, I stumbled upon all this information on Miss Nixon, Miss Lillian Evelyn Nixon, the founding, one of the founding persons of the school. So it's her core values, I believe, that kind of has laid the foundation, the guiding principles of the school. So that also guided me through the book. So if you look at the book, it carefully kind of takes you through her core approaches to women's education, upon which the principles and the values in this school have been formed around.
So that's something that you decided to highlight in the book as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah? So when it comes to the interactive bits, what inspired you to get that in, to not just have a book that you flip like you mentioned earlier, you're just flipping through the pages, but to have a bit of interaction so people are interested in reading the book and, like you said, to keep turning the pages?
Yes, so the idea was also to make it appealing to everyone. So the interaction starts on the very cover with the crimson gates opening out, and I think it's quite symbolic in all our lives and what it means to us. We all connect with the gates, the red gates, through which you walk, and then Dina, it's not just the interactive element, but also if you look at the text, I have tried to make it as reader friendly as possible, as appealing as possible, because when it's too text heavy, we have noticed that
you tend to wade off and not
exactly.
pay attention.
So I have also tried to make it full of, because since there was this whole wealth of information we already had, why not use it? So we have, I was lucky to be able to tap into all these families that had all this information. I think that's another beautiful thing about Ladies College. If you speak to one person, it's also an intergenerational school. So if you speak to one person, they will connect you to a grand aunt or a grandmother, a grand aunt who will speak of her great grandmother, and all these intergenerational memories, and you tap one family and you get a whole, myriad of wealth of information. And so I think that was the exciting part of the project to me. So as a result, you get a lot of photos from 1930s, 1920s, which have not been published before. You get letters, old letters, diaries, diary entries. Then of course the interactive elements, which kind of motivates people to the reader to explore more about the school, learn more about the school, especially the lesser known narratives.
Sounds fantastic. So many beautiful facts about the book that Sulakshana is sharing with us. Of course, we have plenty more questions to ask her about it when we come back right after the break. back in conversation with Miss Sulakshana de Mel about the beautiful book that she has compiled for Ladies College as it turns 125 years. Now Sulakshana, let's talk about the challenges of putting this beautiful book together. How has it been for you?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the biggest challenge was keeping to the 125 pages, because here I had all this information, and how do you kind of curate it in a way that it resonates with the reader, does not overwhelm the reader, yet keep it to this strict 125 pages. I think that was the biggest challenge. So also I think in books of this nature, coffee table books, when it's too heavy, it can be overwhelming, too much information. So I have tried to give little seeds of information, allowing the reader to explore more, read more about the school, and not just about the school. I would say this book would also appeal to non-LCIs, because it also captures a particular period in our history in Sri Lanka when it comes to education of the girl child, and the colonial legacy, and what are some of the educational policies that were brought in, and the socio-cultural context of the country that was in operation that allowed women to pursue education, or did not allow women to pursue education. So I would say in that sense, it's more than the book, a book on Ladies College, but it's also about the history, a particular period in this country.
So this book would appeal to the non-LCIs as
Absolutely,
well?
Absolutely. And I would say that also because it has all these photographs and letters and anecdotes that have not been captured before. So it would reach out to a larger audience.
And the publication of this book, what do you hope to gain by it, apart from putting the history out there for the LCIs and the non-LCIs to grasp, of course? Are there any hopes for the book as well?
Yes, absolutely. My biggest hope is that after reading this book, it will inspire the LCIs, all girls, to come back to school and give back to school, to the school that we all kind of began our lives and laid the foundation of our life and prepared us for life. So that is my hope in the longer run.
Sounds fantastic. Now, with the 125 years being celebrated, are there any other events planned in the school calendar as well?
There are many events planned throughout the year. So I would say maybe for those who are also outside the country, the school website is a good place to find out and keep up to date on what's happening. But there are a whole array of events throughout the year.
Sounds fantastic. We'll come back we'll come back after a few more questions, of course, after this break. Talking about 125 years of history being compiled into 125 pages with the editor, Ms. Sulakshana de Mel. Sulakshana, let's talk about the content now. We've got plenty of interactive pages. Most of it is red, marking the school colors as well. So how did you manage to create a narrative, create a storyline that will keep everybody engaged throughout the book?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that question, Dima. So the first half of the book, as I mentioned earlier, tries to capture Miss Nixon's vision. I will not delve too much into it, let the reader find out how I have captured her vision. But I also reached out to the principals and the vice principals of the last 25 years. So already the 100 years have been documented, as I mentioned earlier, in these two books. So as a result, I looked at closely at the 25 years, the last 25 years. So what the brief that I gave the vice principals and the principals was also, don't look at just the tenure of your term, but I mean, touching on the values of Ms. Nixon, like how was it for you, the school, as a child, as a student growing up. So those narratives you will encounter. I also reached out to a few old girls, asking them a particular question on how school has, the values and principles laid by school has allowed them to explore life and be successful at whichever, you know, life path they have chosen. So you find again personal narratives. I have also done 3 interviews capturing again certain elements, historic period, but the common thread throughout, irrespective of whether it's an interview or a personal narrative someone has shared or what I have written, it's trying to kind of basically encapsulate Ms. Nixon's vision.
Have you managed to sneak in a personal story of your own into the book?
Well, I was actually contemplating whether to or not, and in the end I did not. I have an editor's note where I speak on the journey of the book, but no, not really.
How has your experience resonated through the book? Your experience in school, your time here at Ladies College, how has it resonated in the book?
Well, it has, because in retrospect, I would say, like, looking at my very personal approach to life, the resilience that I have built in tackling life and its challenges and triumphs resonates with the values of Ms. Nixon. And I think that's a common narrative that all of us can relate to across the board.
Sounds fantastic. Well, last question to ask you, now that we have this beautiful book compiled, where would one go to buy this book?
School. Come to school. It will be available. I think it's launched on the 11th of February this year on Founders Day, and after that you can buy it in school.
Sulakshana, I'm sure you have had a group of people help you put this book together as well. Let's talk a little bit about them.
Absolutely. There are a lot of invisible hands behind the book. And one of the pillars who had been a strength to me throughout is Ms. Tanya Tranchel, who is also leading the 125-year campaign for the school. And she had basically been my go-to person for everything in this last 1.5 years. Ms. Dasanayake has a wonderful team backing her for the 125-year celebrations. We need to mention the support that had been extended by MD Gunasena, who is printing the book. They were very generous to offer the book at cost, and we had Rajiva Gunasena in discussion with us from the very beginning. So even before I had started to pen, we had these initial discussions with MD Gunasena, Mr. Rajiva and his team, so that they are also aware of the nature of the book and what we try to aim the audience. You know, so even if you look at the size, it's 10 by 10. It's not the normal coffee table size layout that you may expect. We spoke at length about the color schemes. And it's also, Dima, it's a lot of manual work. MD Gunasena still has these paper cutters, the cutters that they do it manually, and they press in hand, so there's a lot of labor involved, and so it was a challenge to them also, because I had a lot of artwork.
Yeah, there are plenty of illustrations as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you look at the illustrations, most of the illustrations are from old girls or parents, you know, parents. So somebody who had something to do with the school had contributed with the illustrations. So so we had a big team of people working with us throughout, including architect Lakmit Fernando, who is the main person who did the design and the layout of the book. And the layout is also been a challenge because there's a lot of back and forth, and I mean, this is, I guess, a common experience to a lot of people involved in doing books
until it comes to the final stage.
Absolutely. So there's been a lot of back and forth from my end with the MD Gunasena and Lakmit, who does the layout, and the team at MD Gunasena. But it's been very supportive. It's been very supportive in school. I mean, even the school staff, not just the teaching staff, but the non-academic staff. They've been extremely helpful. So when they see me, they know Pote Miss Avila, and you know, so they will let me pass through, and even at the security point. So this was also like a hub for people to drop off their memorabilia, their photographs, for me to collect. So because I also visited a lot of family archives, family photographs, because as I said earlier, it's a lot of intergenerational memory related to Ladies College. So this was also a drop point for all these collections. So the staff also had been extremely helpful.
Have you had a chance to show the book to the current LCites and get their feedback?
Bits and bobs, yes, but not entirely. But of course, there have been. I also have had a sounding board to kind of, you know, I mean, get feedback on and bounce off ideas. And of course, I mean, there have been a lot of people who have helped me also kind of navigate the maze that it's been, and curate it in this manner.
And finally, now that the beautiful book is together, where can one purchase this book from?
One can, of course, purchase it in school. I would say that anybody who comes to office would be able to purchase a book.
Sounds fantastic. Thank you so much, Sulakshana, for talking to us.
Thank you for your time.
And until we see you again with another high exclusive, take care and be safe.